Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. Well, a little while ago, I bought myself a watch from Phoebus, the Voyager V2, and it was such an amazing watch and such a good experience to have. And that really made me want to try another watch from a different micro brand. I recently found myself this Hamtun Nanok watch, and I thought, oh, this is good. This is something a little bit different, something certainly different from the Phoebus watch, also from a micro brand. It was also a watch company that uses Kickstarter to be able to sell watches, so that would be something a little bit different for me as well, buying something that has been launched on a Kickstarter program. It's also a micro brand that's founded in the UK, and I thought that's a bit different too, whereas the Phoebus is from Singapore. Obviously, the watch is not made in the UK, but I thought this would be something a little bit different for me to have a look at as well. The owner has been putting out watches since 2016, and there's been a better range of about 4 different watches and a couple of different versions of them. Now, I picked up the black dial Nanok, and I picked it up at a reasonable price on the used market. This is not a current watch that is being manufactured, but I think it is actually a particularly good watch to maybe keep your eyes out for on that used market. New, they were about 445 UK pounds, but I got it for about half that price on the used market. And when we look at the specs, the looks, the dimensions, and what we actually get for our money, this might be something that's worth actually seeking out there on that used market. Now, I've been looking into this watch brand itself and having a look at the comments that are out there online, and there has been a bit of a mixed bag of results from those comments. Everybody has been quite happy and very impressed by the watches that have been produced. However, not everybody has been able to get their watches that they put their money up for. I think there's been some issues with the owner of this company from a personal perspective, and I know there has been some delays in regards to people getting their watches, and a few people have complained that they haven't got their watches. And also, when you look into these micro brands and these Kickstarter promotions, there's quite a few hurdles for these people to try and get these watches out at the quality that they want. There's production issues, quality control, trying to get it really resolved down to what they want before bringing it out onto the market. So when I've watched a lot of these other micro brands bring out watches, there generally is a bit of delay before you actually get your watch. So I don't think that's a particular thing to worry about. So I want to show you this watch in a full review style. Yes, it's not available brand new at the moment. As I said, I think it's a great watch to pick up on the used market, but I think it also represents the quality of this watch brand itself. And if you are interested in a micro brand or a watch specifically from this company, this review may give you a bit of an understanding of what you may get for your money and the sort of quality, the movement, the style, and the feel of it. So let's turn the camera around now and let's check out this watch. So it comes in this really good quality leather pouch, and it is amazing quality, this thing. It's such a thick black leather, really nice to feel. You can see it's thicker than what I expected. It just has a real substantial feel to it. It has 2 really nice big pockets, good for 2 watches or 1 set of spares and 1 watch. And it's also branded with the Hamtun name there and the logo. It's just really quite substantial. It has a nice weight to it. Yeah, I'm really impressed by that. It's something that you could actually use rather than just a watch box. And of course we have the watch which comes from the watch pouch, and you'd certainly hope that it would. And when I first got this watch, there were 2 things that stood out to me. Firstly, I really liked the elegant, simple design of the watch itself. It sort of feels a little bit dressy and elegant, probably because of the size and the feel of it. And secondly, it certainly does remind me a little bit of the Hamilton Car Key King. Obviously, I think the biggest things and the reasons why it reminds me is probably the date and the day complication, or the day and the day complication, whichever way around you want it. Now, as you can see, I got the black dial variant, but it also comes as a white dial variant. I'm really quite happy I got the black one. I think that's the pick of the 2. I really do like it. I think it looks quite nice, especially with the colors that they've put onto this dial. But one of the reasons why I like it so much is that sort of classy, elegant feel to it. And I think it is sort of that classy, elegant feel because of the case dimensions. We're looking at a 39mm case diameter. It is a nice, super slim 11mm thick. It has a super compact 45.8mm lug to lug, a 20mm lug width, and on this supplied metal bracelet set to fit my 6 3/4 inch wrists. It weighs in 142.5 grams. Now, I think one of the things that I do like about it is this lovely black dial it's got on here. It's just very nice. I think it suits this style of watch really well. And on here, we've got a number of things printed in on white. Firstly, the minute track is printed in white all the way around. We have the logo of the company, which I really like. I think it's quite a good, well thought out logo. Then Hamtun, watches, automatic, 100 meters, 10 atmospheres. Now that's all printed on in white. Now we've got some blue accents printed on as well, which is really nice. At the hour markers, just on the inside or the outside of those applied indices are blue dots. We then have Nanok, which is the model of the watch name printed on in blue. And we've got the little blue accent on that second hand, which I think is really fantastic. I think that really draws it all together and it brings the multiple colors on this dial together and sort of brings it into a unison and sort of feels good, looks good. Now obviously another big feature of this watch is that day complication up at the 12 o'clock. It's really quite interesting to see that. It's the first time I've had a watch with a full day written, and it's quite a sort of feature of the watch. It sort of stands out. It becomes part of the dial rather than just sort of being tucked in as a SAT, having the full Saturday. And it's nice that it curves around as well. And then obviously we've got a complementing date window down here at the 6 o'clock. Neither have any surrounds about them, just fairly simply cut into the dial. Fairly small down at the date window, a little bit hard to read sometimes, and we're obviously looking at a white color wheel with a black writing, so they're not matched to the dial. So differently to other watches that I've owned, the indices and the hands don't match completely. The indices located at the hour markers are all applied. We got a partial, a smaller one at the 6 o'clock to allow for that date window. They have a brushed stainless steel finish surrounding those lume filled areas. Now in contrast, on the hands, we have a white colored, white painted steel sections. So there's no brushed stainless steel or polished stainless steel, but then they are fully lume filled. The second hand is white all the way across, and as mentioned, that little blue tip. A couple of things I do really like about these hands is that they're nice and long. We've got syringe tips on the minute and the hour hand, and they line up about halfway along that minute track. The same as that second hand, it goes all the way up, about halfway up. And I really always do appreciate when these hands stretch a bit further out. Some that sort of finish a little bit earlier, they're perfectly fine, but I like it when they stretch out to that minute track. Now, another thing that I do like about these hands is how they've decided to go with the central area to be all black. It's sort of, when you're actually looking at it in real life, it makes this second hand feel like it's sort of floating above the other hands. And it's kind of just a nice sort of feature, and it sort of brings out another little interesting characteristic of the watch that other watches haven't shown me before. Now all of that is covered by a flat piece of sapphire crystal, and that's covered with a fair amount of clear AR coating, which is really nice to see. As you can see now, I've got the lights directly on it, and you can see through that sapphire crystal very easily. And speaking of that, how legible is that dial? It's really nice, isn't it? Those white hands with the lume on top of that black dial, super easy to see, super easy to read, whether you're in light or outside of light. Now speaking of that lume, it is BGW9, so it has that lovely crisp blue look. And let's stick in a lume video now to show you how good this lume actually is. And as you can see, starts off nice and bright. It still has a fairly delicate look to it, but it's very nice, blue, crisp, and it continues quite well all the way through the whole time period that I've recorded. And I have to say, in real life, it actually continues for quite some time into the night as well. And inside the watch, we have a lovely Swiss movement, a SEAGULL 240-1 high beat movement. And this has a 38-hour power reserve, and being that high beat movement, it gives us that very nice smooth sweep of the second hand there. And that's controlled by obviously the crown here, and the crown has a really, really nice signed aspect to it. That's obviously the logo for the company, but it's really deeply engraved or even embossed onto it. Opening up that screw down crown, really nice and easy to hold on to, even though it is fairly small, but you can see the markings on it do give you a really good grip. Being a SEAGULL, it obviously has hand winding. And I do find some of these Swiss movers do have quite a firm action when you are hand winding, and this one is exactly like that as well. It has a reasonably firm resistance. Very smooth, but very nice. And obviously it does have hacking. This is the first SEAGULL movement that I have had in my collection, and I'm really interested to see what it looks like on the time grapher. Well, what a terrible set of numbers we have here. We talk about having these lovely SEAGULL Swiss movements. We talk about how they're running much better than these Japanese, much cheaper movements. And then we get figures like that. Plus 68 seconds a day. That's horrendous. And I have to say, it was so bad that I just double checked to see whether it was magnetized. I demagnetized it. Hasn't made any difference whatsoever. Amplitude's not too bad. beat error is higher than I would like. That needs to be below 1, not 1.3. It is of course a high beat movement, 28,800 vibrations per hour. Well, this one may have had a bit of a rough life. It's not that old, it's only a year or two old, and that should not be looking like that. Well, that was very disappointing, wasn't it? That's actually so much gaining of time that it's going to be really noticeable day to day when you are wearing it. So I'm going to wear this a little bit more to see exactly how much that is. I haven't noticed it in real life being quite that bad, but time grapher doesn't really lie, does it? So let's get past that and let's move on to the rest of this watch. I have to say, one of my favorite features of it is that the majority of the rest of the case and the bracelet and the clasp is all brushed steel. And it's really nice because it really softens the overall look and feel of this watch. It goes from this being some of this very classy, sort of elegant watch to feeling a little bit more like an everyday watch because it hasn't have any of that high polish on it. So we've got that fixed bezel. It is completely brushed circular wise. There is circular brushing on the top of the case. There is brushing across here. We're going to have a bit of a common theme here. There's brushing all across here. The bracelet, solid end links, fits very, very well to the case. Absolutely brilliant there. It has a solid H-link style bracelet, all brushed as well, and it's a really nice quality brushing too. It's a very soft sort of a satin brushing. We do have screw links, which is nice to see, and we've got a particularly quite good case back. I think I'm really quite impressed by this. Now, it does have fairly shallow sort of engraving on it, as you sort of do sometimes with these watches, but what I like about it is that they've sort of taken up the entire case back. It really sort of gives it a bit of sort of depth. Maybe not a depth from a 3D perspective, but a sort of width depth, I guess. I'm not sure if that makes a lot of sense. Now, I have to say this clasp is very well engineered. It functions very well. It's very well made. It feels very solid. It has a few interesting features, but there's a couple of big problems with it. The first one's only a small one. We've got high polish down the edges of this clasp, which doesn't fit or match anywhere else on the watch. I'm not sure why you would put polish on a clasp when there's no other polishing on the watch. Now, what I do have to say is the logo there looks very good. It does also have a micro ratchet adjust, which is really nice to have on the fly if you're getting a bit of a sweaty wrist. Obviously, this is not going to be a dive watch. It's not really designed for that. However, it does have it available so that you can move it about. So have you noticed what might be the problem with it? Because there's an angle that I haven't shown you. Look at that. That is the biggest, thickest, chunkiest clasp I have ever seen. Look at it compared to the watch. I think it's almost as thick or as thick as the watch itself. And because this watch is actually a little bit smaller in dimensions and it has that sort of elegant feel about it, I don't know how to sort of describe that other than the fact that it does not suit this watch, and I don't think it would suit any other watch. It is that wide. It is, however, very functional, as I've just shown you, with that inbuilt micro adjust, and it is fully milled, which is very nice to see. This is milled as well, but just look at that. Look at the width of that. That is absolutely bananas. I can't imagine why somebody would see this in real life and go, yes, that's the clasp that I want to put onto my nice, elegant watch. I've never seen a clasp that is that wide. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't look right. It sort of outweighs the head of the watch in some ways. It feels a little bit funny on wrist because of that. And it's disappointing. Yeah, I don't think I need to say anything more about that. But I do have to say, besides that clasp, because look at that, that just looks, let's move past that, shall we? It fits really nicely on wrist. This dimension is a really nice, comfortable size for multiple wrist sizes. I have a 6 3/4 inch wrist for your reference, and it fits nicely. But this would obviously fit much smaller wrists, especially because it has those female end links as well, and even much larger wrists. It's one of those sort of sizes that I like because it is such a good size to fit so many different wrists. That nice H-link bracelet, it feels very nice on wrist. It's very comfortable. It's just that clasp. Yeah, it's a monster. It is a nice looking watch, and I really do like the look of it, and I do like how it fits and feels on wrist. So what do I like about this watch? What don't I like about it? And what would I like to change? Well, firstly, I think it's a really good usable size, really nice on wrist, and it's just such a sort of everyday watch and every night watch because it is that elegant, classy sort of look, but then it does have all this brushed steel, which means for me, I think you could wear this watch at the office, you could wear it out with a suit, or you could even wear it down at the beach. And having that 100 meters of water resistance, it's really enough to sort of go and be used in almost every situation. I think it's absolutely fantastic from that point of view. Obviously, the movement inside here is disappointing. I don't expect that it would be the same with every movement. I think maybe this one may have just been mistreated throughout its life, but normally it is quite nice to have that Swiss movement too. What do I dislike about this watch? Well, it's fairly obvious, that clasp. I think that is, yeah, well, I think I've spoken enough about that. I don't like the clasp on it. The crown action as well, although it does work fine, sometimes it does feel like you're not quite sure if you're fully screwed back in again. But, you know, that's okay. You do get there eventually. It's just a little bit sort of, it doesn't have that really nice tactile feel that you just know, yep, there you're finished. No, you sort of have to keep trying a little bit. But I'm okay with that. I'm not sure if it would be good if that was a color match date wheel. I'm a bit undecided. I think it's good that it's nice and clear and it becomes a feature of the dial, but I'm not sure also that maybe it would look better if they changed that around and made it black with white writing. It may then fit in with some of the text here. So what would I change? Well, let's go back to the clasp. Definitely change that one out. But realistically, that aside, what else would I change? Really, the only thing I'd really want to change is I'd like to match those hands to the indices, or match the indices to the hands. It just bring the sort of face together a little bit better. I think they've also got a little bit too much text on the dial because it is a relatively small dial. We've got the logo, the name, then watches, then Nanok, then automatic, and the water resistance. I think it's a bit too much. We certainly don't need watches there. I think we know this is a watch, and I think it would be cleaner without that. And you could probably get rid of automatic as well. It will just make the dial look a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer on wrist. All right, so we are going to flip the camera around now, and I'm going to give you some of my final thoughts of this new MicroBrand that I have in my collection. Now, I do have to say that clasp, it really does ruin my experience and my interactions with this watch. But there is a big positive. If there is going to be a fault with a watch, if there's going to be something that stands out as a big problem, the clasp is probably the best spot for that problem to be because it's very, very easy to swap that out for an aftermarket clasp. And this one is set up really well. They're very universal and links towards the end of those bracelets, so I can swap it out for a AliExpress clasp or even just a clasp that I have lying around the house. Now let's put that clasp aside. As I said, a fairly easy thing to rectify realistically, even though it is a little bit disappointing. What I do have to say is this watch is really good in many situations. I think it's one of those sort of one watch collections that you possibly have because it does really have a really classy sort of elegant feel to it. It is a watch that you could wear under the cuff on a suit, you could wear it to work, but because all the stainless steel in this watch is brushed, it really sort of softens that watch a little bit, and it really feels like a watch that you could wear every day. You could wear it down to the beach, you could do anything with it. So it's like one of these universal watches where you could wear it in almost every situation that you come across. And that's a really big positive for this watch. Having a watch that you could wear in any situation is sometimes hard to come across, and I think they've done very well from this MicroBrand to achieve a watch that does that. So thank you very much for watching this episode. I really do appreciate it. I hope it has been interesting for you, and maybe even if you're not interested specifically in this brand of watch, perhaps it just opens your mind a little bit more to what's out there in regards to MicroBrands. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you again soon.